Sure. Hey, right.
Coffee break.
Sorry, Chris. Chris, if
Yeah.
you've all got the images on the right-hand side now, which you may have of all of us,
Yeah.
and you want to diminish them, just click that hide thumbnail video right at the top, and then we'll all vanish, and then we can see Chris's full screen.
Yeah. It's all right. You can.
got that?
I can have your faces. I don't mind.
There you go.
Right. Okay. So, what we wanted to do really with this is to give people a chance to look at Lightroom and understand it on a sort of fairly fundamental level. So what I thought I'd do is I'd go right back to the basics of the product and try and, so you get an understanding of it. It makes a lot more sense if you kind of understand what it is, what it isn't, and how it works. So he says, click in there. Oh, that's it, right. So if you cast your mind back to 2005, and digital photography was becoming a big thing, and Apple were aimed, their Macs were aimed at the professional market, and designers used them and photographers used them, and they saw an opening in the market, and what they thought was, okay, we want to somebody else here. Hello, Jeff. Right. So Apple saw this gap in the market for, rather than have different products for importing files, another one for sorting them, another one for editing, and then so on and so forth. Apple decided that they were going to release a single product called Aperture. And this made Adobe, who were the masters of the field, absolutely panic. So what Adobe did was they created Lightroom. And it was basically one guy's project, his little project for non-destructive editing. And they took it, they slapped somebody else's code in it, they wedged it together and managed to, within about a month of Apple releasing their product, Adobe had another product that they could say, yeah, we do the same thing. Which, when you get into Lightroom, makes a lot more sense, because it is a bit, in some ways, a bit sort of clutched together and not always a completely consistent thing. So what was the idea? Well, the idea is you have one tool that does everything, i.e. one ring to bind them all. And in Lightroom, that's basically the things it does is it allows you to import your images into it and then sort them, view them, decide which ones you like, catalog them, stuff like that. And then once you've got the images you want, decided which images you want, you can develop them, and then eventually you output them as either a JPEG or a part of a website, or print them or whatever. This output part is the sort of final result, if you like. So there are key things to sort of remember when you're using Lightroom. Although we talk about importing images into Lightroom, you never really are doing anything with the images. All you're doing is you're making Lightroom aware of those files. So you can import files and leave them exactly where they are, or you can move them as you import them. But that isn't really what importing is about. Importing is about dragging, is about making Lightroom understand the fact that you have these images. And that's why they call it importing. And then what you do is you import it into a thing called a catalog. There's a single file in Lightroom, which they call a catalog, which is a database of all your images. And the other key thing is that whenever you do anything, development or developing on it or changing an image, it's non-destructive. So what Lightroom keeps is it keeps a pointer to your image on the disk. It's just literally saying, here is the image, it's over there. And it keeps a recipe of things to do with it. So it might say make it a bit darker, change it to black and white, add a vignette around it, add some noise, and it's basically just a series of recipes, a series of instructions. So that original file still stays there, but you can get to the other part. And the other part is that really it's a system for, it's quite well named really, because it's Lightroom. It's the things you can do with it are pretty much equivalent to what you could do in the darkroom if you were a really good darkroom developer. There's not much in it in the way of digital art, yeah. So you can't easily take, well, or even at all really, take a lump from one picture and put it in another picture. You can't really create composites. That's not what Lightroom's for. Lightroom's aimed at photographers to develop their pictures. And it's had an extra few features over each release where it can do more. But eventually, when you get to a point of you want to do a lot of manipulation, at some point you're going to need to jump into another photo editor or a plugin to do stuff that's extra. Like, for instance, say you thought, oh, this seascape looks great, but I want a boat in it. You're going to have to do that in Photoshop. You can't do that in Lightroom. But if you can, I have no idea. So this is my personal view of Lightroom. The bits that are worth looking at. Like I say, because I said they had this sort of idea of a Me Too tool, an all-in-one kind of thing, and they did that, but a lot of it is just to say that they've got it, rather than it actually being an excellent product. So the bits that work really well are the cataloging, being able to sort through your images, being able to pick the images you want, being able to group them, find them, search for them. Anything like that is really well done. And if you're a librarian, not a photographer, it's a perfect product. But if you're a photographer, it allows you to find the images that you've created over the years. And then the developing side of it over the years has got really good now. The actual being able to change all the elements in your image and finely tune it are pretty good now within the development module. And then the one that kind of everybody forgets is the export function. And export is sort of a key part, because what you can do is you keep your one original image on the disk, but with using Lightroom export, you can make it a small thumbnail, a large print, export it into a website, export it onto Facebook, export it onto Flickr. All of those you can just do straight from Lightroom. Things that work okay is the import function. I'm not a huge fan of Lightroom's import function, but it does the job. And printing. Basic printing's fine. It promises a lot. If you ever follow any of the modules, it allows you to lay out 5 or 6 prints and put them on one page and do stuff like that. Yes, it does allow you to do that. Can normal people manage to do that? Probably not. It's not the most intuitive thing in the world, the print module, but if you just want a straight A4 print or A3 print, it's fine. But it promises a lot, but I think it's a lot harder to do than you'd think. And then the things that are just sort of thrown in to say, yeah, we do that. The slideshow, yeah, it's okay. But if you were doing a proper presentation, you probably want to stick it in something like, what am I using?
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint, that's the word. I'm running it. I can't even remember the name of it. Or any of those slideshow products, because you want a bit more control. Literally, all it will do is just allow you to chuck out a slideshow pretty simply. Allows you to create websites. So you export into onto a file share, and it becomes a website. Really, for any serious use of a website, I wouldn't bother. Oh, Paul Major's been sitting in the waiting room for cross knows how long. Hello, Paul. Sorry. So it allows you to create these websites, but it's if you were using a proper website product, that's what I would do. Because so I use a thing called Photo Deck, but there are hundreds of other companies out there doing websites for photographers, and you just upload your images, and it works in a way that you kind of understand. And then when you want to try and sell stuff or have viewing galleries or private galleries and stuff like that, you can do it with those products, but you can't really do it with just chucking a website out like that. And also it allows you to create books. I think it does blurb books and stuff like that. I would, again, not bother. You'd be better off firing up the software from Blurb or whoever and actually allowing them to, using their software, it would be a lot easier to do and produce something much better. So that's a rough guide to, that's my thoughts about how it works, or doesn't at the best of times.
Chris,
So, yeah.
It's Warren.
Yeah.
From a slideshow point of view, if you just want to show your images on full screen to someone,
yeah,
it works relatively simply, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah.
From that point of view, it's quite good for just basically showing your work, just sort of slide by slide, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good enough. I'll tell you what it is. It's good enough for an Adobe salesman to demonstrate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got it's like a lot of Microsoft products. It's good enough for the salesman to demonstrate it, but when you actually want to use it in real life and want to start sticking titles on and maybe having some text in there and stuff like that, then it falls out. It's good. It's literally just good enough. That's what I was saying. So they're not. I'm not saying they're bad, but they're just good enough to do it. And if you really want to, it's like. I suppose it's a multi-tool. Lightroom is a multi-tool.
Yes.
And if you've ever bought a multi-tool, one or two tools on it are any good, and the rest are usually rubbish. And it's kind of a bit like that with Lightroom. They're good enough to say, I've got a device for getting Boy Scouts out of horses' hooves, but you wouldn't want to use it all the time.
Yeah.
You'll hear a lot talked about workflow, which kind of sounds kind of heavy and sensible and stuff like that. But if you think about the way you took pictures, let's go back to film, for those of us old enough to remember film. If you took pictures, you had a workflow. You would get your camera out, you'd take the photos, you'd send the film off, get it developed, sort through the negatives, decide which ones you like, maybe get them printed bigger and stuck up on the wall or something. So that's a workflow. It's the process of stuff you go through. And these days, in a digital world, you kind of go through the same thing. So you get sort of import, which is taking the pictures off the card, and then you bring them into Lightroom or whatever you're going to use. In this case, Lightroom. And then you go through and you select. And you select whether they're good, bad, indifferent. And once you've got that, now you could, if you're an absolutely brilliant photographer, then you might not even need to process them because they might be absolutely perfect. I don't think it's ever happened to me, but I'm sure some people do. But you might want to just tweak the contrast or stuff like that in the process box. Whatever processing you want to do, remove a distraction, dust spot, whatever. And then finally you decide how you're going to export it. So that's kind of the basic workflow we're using in any photography system. You know, you grab your images, you decide which ones you want to do, you decide how you're going to improve them, and then finally you decide what you're going to do and who you're going to chuck them at. So that's enough of the talk. Everybody, that makes sense to everybody? Yeah? No?
Yes,
okay.
thank you.
Yeah. So Lightroom. Yep. Right. So here we are in Lightroom itself. Now, if you install Lightroom, get it and create it, first thing it does, it will create what they call a catalog, which is your Lightroom file, your Lightroom database. It's where everything lives. So that's what a catalog is. And if you open it up, you get basically this. Lightroom tends to look like this. You tend to get loads of panels down each side, lots of things to do. Up the top, you get what they call modules. So these are into the things, and they sort of start off useful and then get progressively less useful, really. And the idea of a module, so up here, if you click from Lightroom to develop, you'll see, I don't know if it'll do anything. Yeah, there's no photo slip. But the screens will change. If you look on the screens, the panels on the left-hand side, you get a completely different set of panels from like there to there, and from there to map, and from there to book. I don't know what's. Don't tell me you're going to crash it. You're going to crash me? No, you're going to just take a while. Right, so there you go. There's how you create a blurb book. The idea is that you focus on the particular task you're doing, and the two that you will spend all your time in are library and develop, with the occasional excursion into print. Like I say, the rest you're going to use very occasionally, but not that often. So the first part of our workflow is to import files. So this sort of here in the middle is giving us a clue. It's click the import button to begin. Well done, lads. You said click the import button. Anybody see the import button?
Bottom left.
Yay! Yeah, well done. That's like the sort of, and why they can't stick a big import button in the middle here, where you'd be looking for it, yeah. But now down here, bottom left, the last place if your eyes would look for anything. So we'll click the import button. Right. Now, what I'm going to do for a bit of a laugh, shall I do it? Yeah. So just getting some, these are shots that I took today, this morning, walking the dog. Let's see the side of the machine. So in the middle of the screen there, first thing it says is to select a source. So let's select a source. Over here on the left-hand side is the camera or card reader. Is that not right? Is that going to show me anything? You waking up? Oh, okay. That's it. There we go. Drive age. Right. This one. Ah, okay. Right. Sorry, it's a bit sluggish and I'm not quite sure if it's actually doing what I asked it to. So these are a few photos from my morning walks with the dog. So don't expect them to be wonderful. See, there's 5 of each shot because it's before dawn, so I tend to shoot bracketed. So that's all the shots that are on the card. So that's the left-hand side.
Can I ask a quick question, Chris? It's
Yes,
Paul.
mate. Hello, Paul.
Hi there. Why do they always come in with a tick top left-hand corner? Does that mean they're all selected and you have to deselect, or are you?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, for most of us, we'd want to import all the photos. Yeah. I could say, so say I've got some that are, say these are, I don't know, blurry screens. I could go to the trouble of saying I don't want to import them, but I tend not to do that. I tend to import everything, reformat the card and carry on. Yeah. Because if I don't import them, they're all going to still stay on the card anyway, so there's not a huge amount of advantage there. But what we're doing is we're selecting, so that says, well, I don't want to import anything, which is a bit mental. So I might just want to import that one. So, for instance, if I was doing some work on somebody else's photos, they might bring a card in, I'd shove that in, uncheck all, and then just say, oh, I just want to look at this one and this one. But in this case, I do all photos. Hang on a second.
Lovely. Thank you.
You all right? Oh, hang on 2 seconds.
Paul, it's Warren. What's
Warren. Yep.
relevant here, Paul, is you can see he's highlighted beneath copy. He's got all photos. If you put a card in again, it will open up all the images again if you ask for all photos. So therefore you click on new photos and it recognizes the ones it's previously imported.
All right.
Right. I think I understand.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
The previous
point out, Warren.
all the
Heavy
previous
delivery.
import photos are greyed out. If it's got recollection of the photos you already imported, it greys out the ones that are already imported.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you don't have to import them again, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're just talking, Chris, about all photos and new photos.
Right, okay, yeah. Yes, so yes, all photos, new photos, and then destination folders. And so this is a bit weird. It's doing destination folders and it's saying they're going to go in a folder called that and a folder called that. So we decide on the destinations over here. And so what we're going to say is they're going to go into a folder called pictures. So this is the outdoor one. And then what we do is how we want to organize them on this little panel here.
Chris,
Yeah.
I can't see that because all the faces are down one side. Can you get rid of the faces, please?
Move
They're on your screen.
Oh, are they? Okay.
No, you
Yeah.
click that small, that
Yeah, sorted.
normalizing. You got
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Drag them over.
Yeah, we all got that. Right, so we decide, first of all,
Right,
which...
sorry, Chris.
Yeah,
what have we got to click to get
Right.
rid of the people on the right-hand side?
The little dash.
little dash at the top of them.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, or you can just move them out of the way. So over on this right-hand side, so if you imagine it's input on the left-hand side, what we're going to do, and output on the right-hand side. And so we're just going to decide to just drop them into a folder called pictures over here. And see, these are sort of italic underneath that. What it's going to say is this is what I'm going to create. Italic means it's not actually there yet. And it knows I'm going to do that because I've said to, in this destination panel here, to sort them by, or organize them by date using this particular format. So that's year for one folder and then year, month, day. You can decide to have it in any particular date setup you like. I'm kind of more of a fan of that actually, which will create a folder for each day. As you see, April there, May. I much prefer that because you usually tend to do that. Or you can organise them, just bung them all into one folder. I would recommend you organise stuff by date. Why is that? Because it makes it much easier. If you want to back stuff up, you can just look at your 2 hard drives and see if I'm up to May the 12th, I know that I've backed everything up, yeah, across the lot. Yeah.
Yes, you can create a new folder within that drop down.
What, here on this C drive?
If you wanted to. At this
There you go. Create a new folder.
Great.
Yeah. So, but what I would do is just have one top level folder called pictures or my photos, or I have one called working, and then you just let within oh, lost my pictures folder now.
Go up.
Yeah, so you just drop them in. I'm just going to drop them on the C drive now. Yeah, so you just create a top level folder. So let's, on the C drive, let's create. Oh. Users, there we go, Chris. Pictures, right. So that's where I decided to do it. But I would have one top level folder and then let Lightroom sort it all by date for you. Yeah. The temptation people think they want to do is to decide to have subdirectories for flowers and another one for people and another one for, but you don't want to do that. Yeah. Just chuck them in there by date and then use Lightroom to organize. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter where they are physically on the disk as long as they're somewhere on the disk. So that's where we're aiming for. So what I'm going to do is, at the moment, I'm just going to see at the very top here, we've got a choice of copying them or moving or adding. I'm just going to copy them off my card rather than move them, because it won't let you move them off a card anyway. But if you had them already on your hard drive, you could move them from one folder to another. But why would you bother? So I'm just going to copy them from my card onto my pictures folder, and as we go we have a few other options. So I'll come back to previews in a minute, but we can rename the files as we go, and there are a lot of different ways of renaming files. So you might want custom name sequence, so I might want to say all of these are I don't know, H2 images. They'll have a sequence number, and they'll just be H21, H23, whatever. So I can see that's a sample down here. It will rename the files as it goes, if you want to choose to rename them, or you can keep the original names that came off the camera. Up to you. I tend to have something like a date sequence. Because that makes a nice long file name that's confusing. But you can do whatever you like. You can just change them to whatever you like. Yeah, you can choose whichever of these you particularly like, and you can even build up your own ones. So for projected image, if I wanted these to all come in as projected image competitions, the same way we do it like that, it would say title out Chris Shepherd for me. But so let's go with custom name sequence, and they're all going to be H21, H23. So they're going to be renamed as they come in. Then one of the things you can do, so there are going to be things you always do to your pictures. After a while, once you get the hang of Lightroom, you will always apply a certain amount of noise correction to your images. You might apply lens corrections, various other things like that you always do to the images as they come in. You can save them as what they call a development setting, i.e. a recipe. And what this panel here says is, as you import them, apply these presets. So just, you know, if I wanted all of these to come in as black and white, I might bring them all in as black and white, but that's not something you would do. What I do is I have I've stored the standard amount of noise reduction and the standard amount of sharpening that I would use, and put it into one preset, which we can talk about presets at a later date. But I've asked it to remember how I do a basic process of an image, and it remembers it. So as it pulls them in, it does it for me. In the same way, you can set metadata. Anybody know what metadata means?
It's the information
Description of the file, isn't it?
file.
Yeah, more generally, the word metadata means data about data.
The camera, the date.
Yeah, so if you think about it as this way, is that your picture, as far as the computer concerned, is the data. The metadata is the information about that. Just so the date, the time, the camera used, copyright, all of that is information about your main data, which is the picture. That's why they call it metadata. Again, within Lightroom, you can set various metadata fields. Look at that. But you can set like, you know, the camera, well, not the camera use, but you can set your copyright information, stuff like that. And again, what you can do is save that as a preset here and apply that. And so what I do is Olympus cameras have this annoying default that as you bring them in, they say on the caption, Olympus digital camera is written into the metadata automatically. And I just use a little preset that I've got that just wipes that caption out as it comes in, because otherwise you end up pushing stuff to Flickr and the caption is Olympus digital camera rather than something more useful. And then as you import, you can set keywords. So in this case, I might set the keyword of Epping Forest and another keyword of lockdown. So these are my morning lockdown walks. So if I was looking for these again. And it's handy to do that import time if you can, because at this point you've got a pretty clear idea of what it is you're importing and where you were. You know, there's only one in depth lockdown. If you do this at a later date, I might look at this this flower in and think, I don't know where I took that. I don't know when I took. Well, I know when I can find out when I took it, where I took it. Not so easy.
Just a point in there, that will apply that to all selected images. Now, if you've got multiple subjects, you have to unselect them, rename them, retag them, and then reselect them all again.
Yeah, so that's why I did a quite general set of things, because I know these were all taken in Epping Forest during lockdown. Yeah.
Chris?
Yes.
These are all files. I'm assuming if you apply noise reduction to a raw file, which is, I mean, ORF, for those that don't know, is the raw file in Olympus, is it then going to import them as a TIFF or as something else, or does it?
No, you're missing fundamental thing I said at the beginning. Lightroom only holds a pointer to your image and a recipe. It never changes your image.
No, sorry. No. What I meant was, is that information then going to be kept as a sidecar, this noise reduction?
Well, it's going to be stored in the database.
Right.
It's going to be stored inside Lightroom as part of the recipe. And I'll show you that in a second. Okay. So when we bring that up here, so we've renamed the files. We said don't import suspected duplicates, which was the thing Jeff was talking to as the man knocked on the door. And then this last thing here is previews. So if you imagine your preview images are going to be big, your images on the file are going to be big. You're going to put in sort of 20 megabyte, 50 megabyte files. And for Lightroom to keep reading those off the disk is going to be slow. It's going to be really slow, especially if, for instance, I store some of my images on my laptop and some on a network drive. And it doesn't matter, but the network drive is a factor of many times slower. So if I wanted to see the images from the network drive, Lightroom would have to get each image and put it in, you know, and there's 5 terabytes there. So if you wanted all the previews, that'd be 5 terabytes of data coming in and it having to process it and show you the stuff. So what you can do is you can, as you import, you can decide to build previews. And there are 4 different types. You can go for minimal, which will just come in really, really quick, but probably won't give you a very good view. You can use embedded and sidecar. God, that's a horrible terminology, but we'll ignore that. The embedded one is the one that you saw on the back of your camera. Yeah. It's just the one that's stuck inside the raw file. You can ask for standard ones, which what it does is it works out. So when you view it full screen, that's the sort of preview it gives you. Or you can ask it to build one-to-one. So it's when you zoom in, the whole thing's already there. And what you're doing here is you're trading time. Yeah. The better the previews you build now, the faster Lightroom will run after the import. The worse the previews you build now, the slower it will run after the import. And so it's a trade-off. But I tend to go with standard because one-to-one's going to be enormous. Effectively, you're just copying every image or making a JPEG of every image onto your machine. Standard's a smaller file, and then you only need the only time you notice the lag is when you zoom into the image. So that's pretty much import in a nutshell. Everybody got that? Anybody, any questions anybody wants to ask before we go and actually import?
No, thank you.
No, all good.
Chris,
yes, yes, mate.
If you're gonna come on to this, or if it's for another lesson, say so. But
yeah.
The going it to the middle top of the screen, you've got 4 options there.
Yes.
I've obviously got my images onto my hard drive.
Yeah, already.
And I'm given all 4 options.
Yes.
Which is the one I should be using when cataloguing, please?
Right. Are they on your hard drive in the right place already?
Yes, that's the way I work.
Right.
I put them where I want them.
So in that case, you want to do an add. Yeah. Because all you are doing there, earlier on I said about importing, in this screen like confuses 2 things really. There's getting the images off your drive, off your memory stick onto your machine. That's one thing, and importing them into Lightroom is the second thing. So if you choose to do a copy or move, it's deciding where the stuff goes physically on your disk. And then importing it into Lightroom. Add is just doing the import into Lightroom. So because you've already got it on your drive, you can just import into Lightroom and just do an add. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's it. That answers that. Marvelous. Thank you.
Okay. And we're going to just hit the import button.